Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful to be invited back to your congregation this morning, and especially for Love Month. I can tell that your congregation cares about important social justice issues, and I've always believed that love is the fabric of social justice. And it seems to me that you take that to heart. I believe love is a verb. I think you do too. And so when I was thinking about the theme of the month, love, being a public health researcher, I immediately thought of a study, and I think you'll enjoy hearing about it. So the Harvard Study of Human Development is probably one of the longest studies that's still currently going on today. It started with Harvard men. Makes sense. It was in the 1930s when it started, and then they also included men from around the Boston area. Eventually, they started to include the wives and partners of these men and everyone else, right? And so they followed these people since 1930, so throughout their whole lives. And every year, or every couple of years, they measure things like BMI, cholesterol, physical activity, nutrition, things like that. And what they have found is that the strongest predictor of quality of life at age 80 was none of those things. It was the quality of their social relationships. Didn't have to be romantic necessarily, but quality friendships, community members, and also romantic relationships encompassed this factor that was the most important factor for predicting health in older age. And basically what that tells us is that love is the most powerful health indicator that we have. I believe that love should be a public health initiative. Do you agree with me? Yeah. Yeah. At our core, human beings need to be who we are authentically, and to have others embrace us for that person that we are. We need a sense of belonging, and we need to be seen by others. So another weird thing that happened recently is that I joined a radical love group in August. Nothing too spicy going on, so don't worry. Sorry to disappoint. Our basic goal with this group is to read Bell Hooks's book, All About Love, and to meet once a week and talk about prompts and things like that together as a group. There's probably about 7 of us. And as we have been sharing our stories and listening to others' stories, it dawned on me that many of us don't necessarily know what love is. And so I'm going to provide a definition for us today that might be helpful for some of you. It was definitely helpful for me. So in Bell Hooks's book, she describes love as the will to extend oneself for the purposes of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. I'm going to read it one more time. Love is the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. I think this is a perfect thing to share at a church service with love as the focus of the month. Today also represents the first day of LGBTQ plus History Month, August 1st. And so just a quick, I think many of you probably know what I mean when I say LGBTQ plus, but so it means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, also asexual, intersex, two-spirit, and other things are a part of that, and it goes on. So I identify as bisexual. I think I've probably shared that with many of you in this congregation before. And that means I'm attracted to more than one gender. And I'll tell you a little bit of my personal kind of journey. The first time I ever had a crush on another woman, I was 19 years old. She was a good friend of mine. She was gorgeous and thoughtful, kind and smart. And I loved her according to Bell Hooks's definition. I still do. However, this journey of becoming myself was slow and pretty lonely. I grew up in an extremely rigid, conservative household. In my youth, I didn't see a single person that was out as LGBTQ and a member of the community. The only man that I knew of that was gay as a kid went to our church and was celibate for religious purposes, according to my mother. I had no idea what that meant at the time. I heard phrases like being gay is a sin and being gay is disgusting in my home as a kid. I was so scared of being gay and so ignorant about all of it that I swallowed this part of myself for a long time. I would tell myself things like, I can't be gay, I like men, and it's just a phase, it'll go away, and other thoughts like that. I had anxiety and had periods of depression, and I felt like I didn't really fit in anywhere. The thing is, my bi-ness didn't go away. It was always there. It's not a phase, it's who I am. And I'm now a 42-year-old and a proud bisexual woman. In this process of self-discovery, each time I would have a realization, I felt myself becoming more myself. I felt more love for myself. I felt that through understanding who I am, I was loving myself more deeply, nurturing my own spiritual growth. First, in my early 30s, I identified as sexually fluid. This was such a relief. I realized as the time passed that shortly after, that I'm bisexual. By any definition, pun intended. Thank you. It was like a deep settling into myself. When human beings are allow themselves to be who they truly are, and others allow them to exist authentically, love is deeper and more pronounced between people and in our society as a whole. To date, I have never come out to my parents or family of origin. Part of that is because I get to pass as a straight person, so I'm not forced into coming out to them. But I've had a long time to think about this, and it's likely because there is no love between us measured by nurturing one's own or others' spiritual growth. But every time I come out to friends or students, colleagues, and community members, I have to fight the urge to put up a protective wall, to allow myself to be seen by others, maybe a contribution of love. It took painfully too long for me to figure it out because I saw no one in the world that was like me. Maybe it was because I wasn't allowed to watch MTV growing up, so that could be a part of it. Dang it, I have a lot of catching up to do. And the messages in my environment were anti-queer, and I would say anti-love. I believe that if I had told my parents about my identity when I was a teen, they would have put me in conversion therapy. And this type of therapy at its core tries to make people be inauthentic or change who they are truly. The message is that you're not allowed to be who you are. Who you are is not acceptable, and you don't belong. What could possibly take away one's ability to grow spiritually than to be told that you're not allowed to be who you feel and know that you are? Of course, there's a body of literature that shows that conversion therapy is harmful and doesn't work. Conversion therapy isn't nurturing anyone's spiritual growth, not even Mike Pence's, I don't think. Poor guy. I believe it's imperative that humans be allowed to be their authentic selves in order to be loved and to love others in return. I teach a human sexuality class at Chico State in the public health department. And every time we talk about sexual orientation, we talk about the passing of the Marriage Equality Act on June 26, 2015. I cry every single time. Marriage equality. That was the day that the rainbow shone on the White House. The day that queer people could finally sit next to a dying loved one in the hospital without fear of being told to leave because they were not family. So many people in the LGBTQ community throughout history have died alone. To nurture one's own and others' spiritual growth, perhaps this begins with allowing people to be who they are without fear of rejection or persecution. I saw an article recently in the Smithsonian Magazine that was recently published talking about how the year Adolf Hitler came into power, he took the rights of transgender people away to present themselves the way that their gender would present. There is also significant documentation about the ways that the Nazis attacked the LGBTQIA+ community. And the same flavor of fascist playbook that is playing out in our country still today. You know, I think most queer kids know that these acts are violent and unjust. And honestly, I think it's the smaller, more frequent anti-love experiences they have that truly cause despair. Now, some people might say, well, kids nowadays have it so much better. When I was a kid, we had TV with VHS, and I watched Ellen DeGeneres come out, and that was a nightmare, right? So that's the only connection I had with coming out at that time. And nowadays, kids have TV series like Sex Education or Heartstopper or even League of Their Own with tons of representation of LGBTQ+ people in the community. Yet the Trevor Project's most recent report in 2022 estimated that 1 in every LGBTQ+ youth between the ages of 13 to 24 attempts suicide every 45 seconds in the United States. This is the kid who just wants to use the restroom that matches their gender identity, but the school has a rule about what genitals people need to have to use a specific restroom. The kid whose parents continue to use their dead name or wrong pronouns, even though they've asked over and over again for them to use the right ones. The boy who's bullied by his peers for being and looking and acting in a feminine way. The kids who stand in line at the grocery store after school holding hands while a stranger comes up to them and tells them that they're going to hell. Not being able to seek medical care for fear of outing themselves to their unsafe family. Not being able to talk to trusted teachers at school because of a policy forcing the school to tell their unsafe parents. One of my current students at Chico State was in high school last spring, when Chico Unified was dealing with the lawsuit and considering whether or not to force school employees to tell parents about kids' gender identities. And they describe it as a really scary time for them in their life. These big and small acts of anti-love, I think this is why youth are still struggling today, even with Heartstoppers. It's a great show. Still, we keep them from being who they are authentically. Bell Hooks says that self-love is the foundation of our loving practice, and without it, our efforts to love fail. I think self-love could be more difficult for kids whose families, schools, and communities are rejecting them. It is love that is the root of social change. Remember the hashtags for the Marriage Equality Act when it was passed? Does anybody remember some of those? Love is love, same love. And then we have pride. And pride is the epitome of self-love. Pride was born out of a community's ability to say, enough is enough. We're here, we love ourselves, and we love and deserve to be treated like human beings. The community fought for our rights with love at the forefront. And each year we celebrate the love in our hearts for ourselves and our community. Bell Hooks says that when love is present, the desire to dominate and exercise power cannot rule the day. Society's collective fear of love must be faced if we are to lay claim to a love ethic that can inspire us and give us the courage to make necessary changes. And there's so much that we can give these kids and to show them that we love them. Bell Hooks says that commitment to truth telling lays the groundwork for openness and honesty that is the heartbeat of love. Commitment to knowing love can protect us by keeping us wedded to a life of truth, willing to share ourselves openly and fully in both private and public life. This is what I've tried to do today with you all. And I believe that we all can do this collectively. We can show up, tell the truth, share stories and information, challenge the policies and laws that hurt the LGBTQ community and other marginalized groups, and be there to nurture our own and others' spiritual growth by creating a community in which our kids are safe to be who they are, and who they are is celebrated.